Hello, Spectro. We're so sorry that we destroyed your home, but your little AI friends that you've abandoned have told us many things about you. Bad things. You are truly one naughty little boy. Now that you're back from Earth, it's time we come to collect. We're coming for you.
Disturbing movies is quite a loose term in regards to how many perceive movies. Any film can be registered as a disturbing film like horror movies, thrillers, etc. But when it comes to these movies in particular, they create a whole new genre that overstep the narrative. Today, I wanted to take a look at some of the world's most disturbing movies and give my thoughts on each of them. Now, there are going to be some movies that I'll leave out on this list, like Human Centipede, I Spit on Your Grave, or even gore mixtapes, which, to be honest, I don't really consider as movies, but anyways, here are some disturbing movies that might rub you the wrong way, according to me. A Serbian Film. This is by far the most famous or infamous disturbing film of all time. I'll try my best to explain this movie without YouTube trying to take this video down because believe me, the contents of this film are littered with disturbing themes. The movie is about a former adult film star who wants to get back into the adult film industry. However, after meeting a self-proclaimed art filmmaker, he finds out that the director is a sick, twisted individual who wants the main protagonist to commit acts of lewd and even murderous acts that cause him to go haywire. To give you some ideas of what this film has to offer, we have horrendous acts committed to children, especially a newborn, in which I don't even want to get into, necrophilia, and hints of bestiality. And worst of all, the climax of this film pins our MC to film the ultimate scene in which he violates a hooded figure, only to find out that it's his own son. I can't with this movie. The film ends with the protag slaying the art film cast and creators and eventually offing himself and his family. This film is by far the most disturbing and exploitive films I've ever seen so far. Compared to other films we'll be talking about soon, Serbian Film is always depicted as the baby's first disturbing movie, which would make a lot of sense because of how much notoriety it has. Hell, this was my first exposure to the ever-expanding world of disturbing movies. But regardless, it's still a disturbing watch that I honestly do not recommend. Cannibal Holocaust. Cannibal Holocaust is considered to be the first ever caught-on-film movie, predating the Blair Witch Project by a decade. Released in 1980, Cannibal Holocaust documents the lives of 4 filmmakers who travel to the Amazon rainforest. What follows is a series of gross, brutal, and cannibalistic acts that blur the line between fact and fiction. Unlike Serbian Film, where you can tell it's fake, Cannibal Holocaust is a stark contrast as its guerrilla film style almost makes it appear as if the characters who ended up getting killed and eaten actually happened to them. There are tons of messed up imagery that I obviously can't show on YouTube, one of which is an infamous shot of a female tribal member who ends up ending herself via impalement up her... oh god, that image just is ingrained in my mind. Now, even though no one was harmed, that didn't stop them from killing live animals on camera, such as monkeys and a turtle. When you put animals in a scenario like this, you know it's going to be bad, especially given the fact that it's fucking animals we're talking about. They had no idea that they were in a movie, let alone get maimed on camera for the sake of quote-unquote entertainment, if any form of it can be generated from this film. Because of its graphic content, the filmmakers were accused of making a snuff film. Not surprising there, because most of the actors were literally nobodies and had to sign a contract to not appear in any form of media to keep that authenticity of them playing real-life photographers that die in the film's narrative. The film has been banned in 7 countries and had even led the director of the film, Nogueira Deodato, arrested for obscenity charges. As controversial as the film is, Deodato has reflected on the film and its legacy, even condemning his own actions for adding animal cruelty in the movie. Now, in terms of legacy, what people might not know about is that in April 2020, it was announced that Cannibal Holocaust would receive a sequel in the form of a video game titled Ruggiero Deodato Cannibal. Martyrs. Do you like revenge movies? Well, hate to break it to you, but this might not be the one for you. What if a revenge scheme went totally wrong? You get Martyrs, a French-Canadian psychological horror that tells the story of two friends who are both victims of abuse and aspire to enact revenge on the culprits. However, this only leads to them experiencing more trauma and despair, leaving the two girls to fall victim once more to their cult-like adversaries. It's disturbing to me because, like I mentioned before, it's a revenge story gone wrong. You want to root for the characters, but in the end, they just develop more trauma and loss that eventually lead to their ultimate downfall. Another disturbing moment of the film was the depiction of another prisoner character. One of the girls finds a prisoner who is blinded by a metal device that is covering their eye, and if pulled off, it will pull their entire skin. The ending is a bit of a downer, which is already a huge sentiment considering how all these other films I'm covering are all downers, but at the end of the film, our two characters end up dying, but there's at least a moment where the villains do get their comeuppance, and the two friends finally rest in peace. I recommend this movie to people who are curious as its only heavy subject matter is kidnapping, torture, and religion, but again, make sure you watch it knowing you're delving into some pretty fucked up territory. Audition. Ever wanted to know how torture films like Saw came to be? Well, you're looking at the film that pioneered that genre. Audition is a Japanese horror film that tells the story of a man named Aoyama who recently lost his wife. Encouraging to move on, he seeks to find love once again, selecting his dream girl by holding a mock auction, resulting in him finding his sweetheart named Asami Yamazaki. Aoyama realizes that something is off and that there's more to Yamazaki than meets the eye. He then uncovers secrets and disturbing facts about her past, resulting in him potentially falling in love with a deranged psychopath. It's one of my personal favorite Japanese horror films for two reasons. One, it's a clever commentary on the disgusting nature of the way the entertainment industry treats its creators. The exploitation and sexual abuse and harassment that relate to is hinted in this film's narrative. Secondly, I love that it's a horror film first and a disturbing movie second. Part of the horror is unknowing truth of what really goes on in the movie. There are some really scary moments that made me jump that weren't even jump scares, and believe me, I don't recall any to begin with, but that doesn't stop the movie from being unsettling as hell. The only true disturbing moment comes in the form of the climax, as it contains some of the most hard to watch moments in any film I've seen. I don't want to spoil it, so I'll just say this. Go watch this movie. Audition is a masterpiece of a horror film that deserves to get mentioned on any disturbing movie list. Happiness. Every movie I mentioned usually depicts scenes of gore, violence, blood, and so forth, but do you know what all of them share in common? The answer would be humans. All of these would have never been committed if a human being was responsible for it. Because of that, you may never know who you may come across that might have a disturbing background to them. Happiness is a film that depicts just that. This film follows a group of different characters, all of which have their own problems at play. You have one character who is struggling to find fulfillment in their lives, one character who has an unhealthy obsession with a tenant of theirs, and a suburban father who may appear to be a loving family man, but is secretly into children. It's disturbing because of the fact that this film is basically just following the lives of normal everyday people, despite how disturbed they are. They look like everyday people. They could be your friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers, people you meet online. It's a scary world we live in, yet we paint it in a bright picture, even though our world is basically black and white. That's why Happiness is such a fascinating film to me, because it depicts people living in a bleak reality, yet paints it as if we were colorful and mellow. I really recommend this movie, not just for its subject matter, but also for its acting, writing, and directing. Trust me, you won't be disappointed, even if this film isn't in your wheelhouse. And finally, we saved the best, or worst, for last. August Underground. If there is a film so disturbing that it makes anyone who viewed sick to their stomach, you'll have August Underground, a caught-on-film indie movie that depicts the day in the life of a serial killer by the name of Peter Mountain, who along with the cameraman goes around killing people with no rhyme or reason. August Underground is notorious because of how realistic the movie appears. Because it's shot with a low budget, or in this case a no budget, seeing how most of the film is shot like a group of friends were bored one day and decided to make the worst mockumentary of all time, people were disgusted by how it glorifies serial killings and the victims that were affected by it. My biggest issue with the movie is that it's boring. Because of the other films I've seen prior, this movie is nothing but to me. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty fucked up. But I was left with one question. What's the point? There's a lot of interesting ideas to make a serial killer movie that is shot in the style of a documentary, but part of that issue comes with the lack of focus, message, and flow. There's no structure, no build-up, just a psychotic serial killer murdering people. Peter Mountain could have been an interesting character, but we know nothing about the character aside from him being a psychopath, and that's it. The only thing that makes this movie notorious is its shock value. Peter is nothing more of a vehicle to generate that disturbing factor. That's all he serves. Not to mention, this movie is a part of a trilogy of other movies, and they are just as worse as the next, from what I heard. I refuse to watch the other films, not because I want to not be disturbed again, but because I don't want to sit through an hour of pointless shock value. Should I be entertained or bored? There's nothing I could talk about aside from just being a movie that tries too hard to be a commentary, when in reality it's just dumb shock. No hate on any of the creators because I'm pretty sure they're nice people in real life and that they just wanted to make a movie that just was more experimental, which is fine, but for a film this famous to be disturbing, it's nothing more than a bore fest. There's no value, no thought-provoking scenes, no good characters, no moments where I felt like it stood out from other films on this list, and above all, a boring experience that actually made me want to watch other films. August Underground sucks balls, and its sequels can catch its disease in the process.
Some are calling it a sign of alien life. Officials say that a mysterious spacecraft has crash-landed in our city. We'll cover more of this story after these messages.